Hello, it's MrELoans.com bringing you some information about applying for an FHA loan in Chula Vista, California. Now, when you apply for an FHA loan, you'll be asked for a significant amount of information and documentation. The information that the FHA requires applies to refinancing and new home purchases. This information will be used on your application with the bank or the lender. You will need to provide the lender with a wide range of detailed documentation that includes some of the following. The first thing you'll need is past residency. You'll be required to show proof of where you lived for the past 2 years. So this is relatively easy if you've lived in the same spot for the past 2 years, or if you've rented from the same person for the past 2 years. Most banks will require that you get some sort of documentation showing that you were able to pay your rent on time and how much your rent was. If you owned a mortgage and you're moving into a new home, they're going to want to see history of you being able to make your mortgage payments for the past 2 years. The next thing is employment history. You'll be required to provide where you worked for the past 2 years and the amount of your gross monthly salary. Now, if you worked at multiple jobs, you're going to have to provide this information for multiple employers. If you worked at one single job, then it's a little bit easier because you only have to provide that information for one employer. Now, the third thing you'll need to provide is W-2s. A lender will require that you provide W-2s for the past 2 years. So once again, if you worked at multiple jobs, you will need to provide W-2s for each job that you worked at. If you're self-employed, a lender is going to want to see your tax returns. So the fourth thing is tax returns, which we just kind of covered. Regardless of whether you're self-employed or a W-2 employee, now banks are requiring to see your tax returns. You will be required to provide your tax returns for the past 2 years. The lenders want to know what your income is after your deductions, especially if you're self-employed or you work off of commission. Getting all this documentation together before you apply for an FHA loan can definitely help speed up the process. This documentation can actually slow down the loan application if not provided, which in return will take you longer to close. This information is extremely important when considering purchasing a new home. If you provide this documentation to the lender, it will help you create a stronger pre-approval letter. You want this information as accurate as possible so that the loan originator can create a pre-qualification letter off of the proper amount of money that you can borrow. Not doing so when you apply for a loan can actually cause problems when you're trying to purchase a house. If the pre-approval letter is not correctly configured, you might be shopping for a home that you might not necessarily be able to afford. Refinancing is a little bit more straightforward since you already own the home. A delay in providing the documentation on a refinance can ultimately result in you missing out on an interest rate that was proposed to you during the pre-approval process. So we just covered some basic information about what documentation you'll need when you're going to apply for an FHA loan. So if you have additional questions, feel free to visit our website at www.mreloans.com.